The whole purpose of the podcast is to help people live in balance, well-being, and joy. I call this series Uncomplicated because if we know how to put yourself first, create harmony, give back and share, and always keep reaching. Once you have that solid foundation, everything else falls into place. Welcome to the Kamit Podcast, the Uncomplicated series. I'm Doris Bogus, your host, and I want to welcome you along this journey with me. Well, welcome back to the Kamit Podcast, the Uncomplicated series. We have Marva joining us again. Welcome back, Marva.
Thanks for having me. I guess I was on good behavior, so I got invited back.
Of course, you're so good. You brought me out. You brought things out that
Awesome.
I hadn't really thought about.
Awesome.
So thank you for that. That's what these conversations are all about.
Yeah, well, I really want to know about the keys and the principles and how to make them user-friendly for me.
Well, good. So the second key to well-being, balance, and joy, and living uncomplicated is harmony. So harmony, what is that? It's a pleasing arrangement of things. It's a balance. It's a distribution that's easy and pleasant for you. And so when we can think about what it takes or what areas that disharmony may erupt. Let's think of it like that. We know what harmony sort of feels like, but what do we do when there's disharmony?
Okay.
And so when you think about key areas, family, home, workmates, friends, those are people and places that you spend a lot of time with, right? And so conflict is going to happen. So if you think of those areas where you spend a lot of time as notes on a scale that you get to arrange and choose how you want them to sound and look like, then that's how we approach harmony.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, for instance, in your home, but what are the benefits? Why would you want harmony? Who wants conflict, right?
Well, when I think about harmony, I also think about peace. And so I don't have a musical background, but I am plugged into a family all around me that were musically gifted. And so I get, when it comes together, it's joyous and it's happy and it is pleasing to the senses. So I know the feeling of that tangible feeling when that gets disrupted and how to identify
How do you
disrupt the disruptor of the harmony.
And what do you do about it?
Girl,
it's a little easier said than done.
Well, I have my way of how I would do it, but I'm here with the. It might not be the healthiest or the nicest. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy. Well, it's hard because you are dealing with family and friends, right?
Right.
And
Human
you just
beings
don't want to just squash people.
Well, that's my natural impulse, Doris.
That's the natural impulse
for me.
But what are some better ways to do
you
that?
tell me. So I would, I'm old school and have seen my grandmother just speak to the atmosphere and open a door. And like whoever brought this in, they got to leave. So I'm very tangible. I am a visual learner. And so I have done things like that so that I'm not throwing hands on people.
Well, I've got family members like that, so I can relate to that kind of dealing with conflict to this day. Okay, but maybe that's why I focused on harmony.
You're trying to help me.
I'm the middle one. I grew up with that around me, right? So how do I dispel that, or how do I address that? First of all, you have to acknowledge it.
That there's you use your words.
That is there because if you use your words, or you can admit your part in it. Maybe. How am I contributing to this disharmony? Why am I tolerating it? That people pleaser in me. Why I had to say, why are you tolerating this behavior? And what part am I playing in it? And then I had to say, well, some of the conflict was initiated by me because I thought you should live this way, or I thought your lifestyle should look like this. But who am I to say to one of my family members that this is the way you should act? And so she's going to receive that.
Oh, I'm quick to say this ain't normal.
Right.
I grew up in a peaceful household, but that's not leading to peace.
No, it's not.
Right.
And so when you do that, you have to step back. One of the ways to avoid conflict and bring things back in harmony is to step back and reframe the situation. And when you think about reframing, when you frame something, you focus in on it. A frame can be limiting, though. So if you reframe how you deal with something, then you get a whole nother outlook.
Reframe or reimagine. So you were the kid were you a quiet kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so we opposites. We're on the opposite end of the spectrum, of the scale.
Okay. So maybe I can learn something from you and you can...
I'm like, we just trying to get along. What did Jesus say in John 17? We praying for unity. So I want to learn from you. And so as a person that is, I'm like a Peter in the Bible. So I act first and then the consequences are behind me and we'll deal with that later.
Ready to cut that ear off.
I'm ready to cut. But learning and wanting to operate in emotional self-control. So it seems that you already come with great co-regulation of your emotions. Is that something? Because you reimagining, I'm fight first and figure it out later.
Yeah, and how can I bring peace to this situation, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the keys that I try to bring and get people to see is that there are these ways and methods that you can do that. And one of them is stepping back, acknowledging your part in it or a non-part in it. Or when do you let them go?
That part. Right.
You make the list. Who's causing the conflict? What's the residual of it? What's left over? Is the trust restored? Then you have to make that decision. Cut the person or the situation out of your life. And only you can do that.
So when were you applying this to your life most recently?
Oh my God. Family.
Okay.
You know,
we don't have to name names. People still living. We want to respect
and I've
everybody.
learned to just deal with her, keep my distance, the old saying. Handle them with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
Handle people. And so that's what I do. Avoidance, I guess, is my way of dealing with a family member that constantly
would poke and stir up the pot. And bring in
just that person that's, you say up, she says down, or he says down, that kind of thing. And that's upsetting to me, the peacemaker.
Okay.
So
when do you say no? So what are you implementing to try to get harmony going? If you're pressing the key and you're trying to get a rhythm going and she's just counterintuitive to it, what is leading up to, what have you tried before you step away and you got to use the 10-foot pole?
Being agreeable.
But
then I say, why are you just being a people pleaser? You don't really feel this way. So, okay, you feel bad about yourself when you do that. So I tried being agreeable. I tried talking rationally. This is the way I see it. What about this way? What about this idea? Didn't work. So now it's just, so I have my limits. And that's the beauty of the 4 Kamit Codes. You measure. When you measure something, you see it in black and white. There's no second guessing about maybe they're going to change. You set a boundary, and if it's crossed, you have to make a decision or decide what you're going to do about it. You either just walk away or either deal with it. So
how many attempts do you give for reconciliation or to work on working the piece of harmony?
I know what the Bible says about it.
Okay.
70 or 7 times forgive.
All right.
Right? But then we live in this human realm, I would say, where it's a process. I hope to give as many chances, but then I have to, self-care is my main goal.
All right.
And so I have to take care of me first. And that's what I do, guilt-free. I've tried everything I know how to do. I've asked for help. I prayed about it. I did all the spiritual things.
Right.
But then it comes down to self-care.
Okay. And then, so what's a success story when you've implemented this? When you think of a success story that you've tried? Yeah,
it's peace of mind, number one. I feel inwardly proud of myself because I was able to set a boundary for myself. I feel now that I can be decisive about situations. I have a measure of peace and contentment. I'm not stressed, for one thing, for sure. And so that's all helpful to me in my journey to well-being, balance, and joy.
Do you think that there is such a thing as being able to carry more stress or someone being easily stressed out? Where they have a capacity to carry more of a stressful situation?
I think we all have the capacity. We don't know our own strength and what we can tolerate. I've been in situations that I just refuse to give up. I'm in stressful situations, but refuse to let people
Right.
tell me what I can and cannot do, go where I can and cannot go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we step up
Mm-hmm.
and arise to to the situation, but it's not healthy
Mm-hmm.
for me. Stress does things to you. I have a medical background, and so I know what stress can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we have the capacity. Yes, people are more tolerant. But in the end, when you think about self-care, it's not healthy.
Well, tell me more about your medical background, because that's
Well,
news to me.
I have a science background.
Okay.
I have a major in medical technology and a minor in chemistry. And so
Mm.
I'm always solving for X. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's why maybe I wrote this book. What's
Right.
the answer?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love working out. And so I try to have a measure of fitness and knowledge about what's healthy for a human.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know stress is not good
Mm-hmm. When you measure it on the body.
when you measure it on your body, and then the mental things that you can't measure.
Mm-hmm.
You may find yourself in situations where you don't mean to lash out, but you're so stressed that that's your default.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to manage that.
So for a room of younger women that are supposed to be going after this 2024 standard of having it all, and they're tolerating a number of different things, how would you engage them in giving them counsel?
I would say you have a choice. Having it all, what is that it for you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not what society says it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what you learned growing up that it looks like. You have to decide for yourself, and that involves self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
What truly makes me feel balanced, well-being, and have joy. Those are the key things that I think are non-negotiable. So my advice to these younger go-getters, influencers, young moms,
Mm-hmm.
a young adult, define what it is, what it means to you.
Mm-hmm.
Having it all looks different at different stages of your life. You don't have to have it all right now. Just focus on you, and then things fall into place.
So if I were to follow you around, and we have our producers follow you around when you wake up to you go to sleep at night, what does your routine daily look like for you to maintain harmony?
Meditate first, settle my mind.
Mm-hmm.
What's my day going to look like? How do I want it to look?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I am out the door, and I try to focus on one thing at a time. You don't have to focus on everything at once. Slow down. Things fall into place. They work out. My number one counsel would be don't stress. Life is going to do what it's going to do.
Mm, well, that sounds like we have come to the close of our second episode, which you said top of mind was going to be harmony.
Mm-hmm. And bringing that into your life constantly. And remember, your goal is well-being, balance, and joy. So, Marva, I want to thank you one more time for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
I like it.
And I hope to have you back again.
Thank you.
And remember, everyone, take care of yourself. I want to thank my guest, Marva Hanks, once again for joining me on the Kamit Podcast, the Uncomplicated series. Next week, I hope you tune in, because we will talk about giving and sharing and how that brings unmeasurable or immeasurable joy into your life. So I hope you tune in. And once again, I want to leave you with this phrase: treat yourself well. See you next episode.